So you would drop this down to $10,000?
Yeah.
But you would include an article, a different article that's not on this list for
the truck.
For the 10-wheeler?
Yeah, right. But he's still behind, you know, I mean, I would say if I was king for a day, I wouldn't even buy that truck.
Well, yeah, then why are you doing it?
That's for the town to decide, not me. So if the town wants to vote it down, so if it's as a small group of people, we should at least give the town an option to vote for this truck.
Yeah, but we have to have a plan. We can't just say vote for it if you think you want it.
Well,
you're our expert.
So realistically, and this is a conversation I've had with David, but I don't really ever get a really good answer, is right now we have 5 trucks. Take one away, what will the roads look like during the winter time? How long will it take you to get around to do it? And what would the roads look like?
Well, couldn't we say in the next year come up with a plan, a better plan, you know, along the line?
It depends. Yeah. Well, this is this is what each department head wants. You know, for replacement equipment and
need or want.
Well, I said want. So you know, so that's the whole thing. Reality is, can we afford that? And the reality is, in my eyes, is no.
So what do we need, Glenn?
Personally, I wouldn't replace that truck.
That's one more year.
And it dies.
One more year, gives us one more year. We come up with a better plan, and maybe we get some sort of combo magical thing where you...
And if we did that, then I would put probably a little bit more into the capital reserve to get there. But if we buy a truck, we're going to have to cough up the money from someplace because we don't have enough money to buy that truck. So I have a hard time saving money and putting money into a truck at the same time.
Exactly, without a plan.
And that's why I said if we buy that truck, I would probably put $10,000 in there. If we don't buy the truck, I would probably put it around $40,000 or $50,000.
All right, somebody needs to make a motion in terms of, hold on, somebody needs to make a motion in terms of specifically what we want to do with that line item, and if we need to include another thing, and I think the minutes need to reflect what our thoughts were and what exactly we were doing, so we can pass that along to the selectmen. And if we get another snowstorm and miss a meeting, that we all remember what we were doing and why we were doing it. So, unless you had your hand up first.
I make a motion, basically, that we take and put into the account $40,000 and we dismiss the idea of purchasing a new truck next year. For another year. For another year.
You want to clarify that $40,000, they've got in their plan, and we made a separate motion from this, $100,000 coming from the fund balance and $45,000 from taxation. Where would you like that $40,000 to come from?
Taxation.
Taxation.
Not from the fund
balance.
balance.
Okay, I can modify that to include the fund balance. No problem.
All right, so you want to restate your motion for Priscilla, please?
All right, I would like to make the motion that the truck that they are requesting to replace next year is put on hold, and that the monies that would have been used for that truck to a tune of $45,000 will come from the
45.
He said 40.
I said 40.
I have my own.
Here it says 45.
40.
That they were going. We can make the motion whatever. Are you making a motion for 40 or 45?
40.
Okay, motion's going to be for 40. We can then
From the fund balance.
From the fund
For
balance.
Article 4.
Correct.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Don't raise your hand.
I'm writing down.
All those opposed? Very briefly, Donna, what would you suggest as an alternative?
45.
So it's strictly the number rather than the principle?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so we're through.
Actually, the spreadsheet, we'll see how it goes.
I'll see how.
All right, Article 5, shall the town of Alstead vote to raise and appropriate a sum of $10,000 to be added to the transfer station capital reserve fund, and they are proposing that comes from the fund balance as well. We had left that at $10,000 the last time. Is that okay? Any comments on that one?
I was thinking of right around 2,500. And I raised by new taxes.
Why is that?
Well, the scheme of things is that we need to start raising new money for projects, because possibly next year we may not have all that money. I always look at it, how high would I like to have my taxes raised? So the way I look at it is every $160,000 is $1 in tax rate. I definitely don't want that. So if you cut that in half, so $80,000, and this is depending on the.
Talking about 10,000.
Right, but what I'm trying to say is this is my reasoning of playing with these numbers to try to get them to fit into that. Of say, only raising that amount of $80,000, the rest will come from fund balance. If the $10,000 would go towards a new truck, if we were going to buy a new truck, but we may not be buying that, and where that money came from, I don't know where it would come from, because each capital reserve is targeted to the highway department and the capital reserve for the transfer stations, only for the transfer station. So if we buy a combination truck, I don't know where the money comes from. So why put more money into that if we don't, other than the building maintenance up there?
Well, the other thing too you have to look at is part of me says, why put money into something if we're going to force the issue and go to pay-as-you-go or something
Well,
like
the
that?
buildings need some maintenance up there, and that is a broad enough warrant article that will cover all that stuff up there. I always feel that once we get into the deliberative session, if people want to increase those amounts, then that's the group that's running the meeting.
Why take it out of taxation though rather than the fund balance?
To try to get to that $80,000 figure.
So you're fixing your numbers based on the bottom line
Correct.
increase,
And just adjusting the numbers.
rather than what equipment or repairs you think we need
Correct.
to.
They're proposing taking nothing out of nothing for the 2016 tax, so why all of a sudden go from it coming from money in the bank
Well, see,
to.
last year we raised no new money whatsoever.
That's true.
And we got away with it. The year before that, we raised only like about $60,000. The year that everything hit the fan, it was, I didn't bring those through, it was quite a bit more, and that's when they had been playing with the numbers, obviously, of putting fund balance into it, and they raised a lot of money on top of it. That was the year that Matt said, let's see what happens if everybody wants to have the same lifestyle. That's what happened. We had a revolt. So that's why I picked the $80,000. If we keep that same amount of money, like we were at the meeting today, Chris, those, everybody in that board was expected to keep that Article 2 as level funded, is what they're shooting at. So I just played with those numbers on that.
But you can play with those numbers. You can play with those numbers that way, but we also need to think about what we actually have to have. So I hear you playing with them, but I also don't want to get to the point. I'm afraid that next year, if they're spending down the entire fund balance.
Well,
which is
that's what they're voting for. We, as people, can change that.
Right.
They were going to keep about $250,000, I think, in the fund balance was Joel's goal.
No, they have to keep some. But if
There's a real debate on how much, trust me.
right, no, there is. But my concern is if we do that, then the next year, we could be
I agree
through
with
the
you.
roof, because every warrant article will be raised by taxation. And if that goes through, our taxes are going to go.
And you have to start preparing for that. In order to start preparing for that, now, I'm not saying spend all the money. See, I believe that there's going to be somewhere around $900,000 in there for fund balance when we're sitting there next year this time of year. So if we can spend $450,000 of that, half of it, and then the rest by taxation, then just two numbers so that everything else comes in.
I think the select board is pretty much vehemently opposed to keeping that kind of money.
I understand that, but if someone gets up at the deliberative session and makes a motion to change those numbers, it doesn't matter what the select.
I know that.
I think that you've got a very good point. If we keep paying for everything with warrant articles, our taxes will go through the roof. And I think the important thing is to keep some kind of consistency
Right,
from year
that's
to
what
year,
our
so that we
position
can do our personal budgets, for God's sakes, and not be blindsided. So I think the more that we put into the budget every year and keep out of warrant articles, the better off we are.
So
When
Glenn,
you
how many
say out
times?
of warrant
In other words, instead of having everything be a warrant article, whether it's striping or whatever thing we want to spend money on, the bridge, repairing the bridge, if we can keep it in the budget, then we can keep some consistency from year to year, as opposed to, having the budget be rock bottom, and every year we have warrant articles
You're
that
absolutely right, but there's one problem with that, and the striping is one of the issues. There's two concerns. One, it gets lost in the shuffle when they throw it into the budget. The money's there, and if it doesn't say specifically striping, it can be used for whatever. Okay, well, hold on.
Yeah, but
And the
that's
other thing
David's
is,
problem.
well, it's a select board's problem for managing.
So in other words, this is something I don't understand, that the select board can tell David, no, don't stripe, even though we've got the money there.
Oh, yeah.
It's definitely
And
the
they can
select
move
board's
money around.
problem.
They can move money around or not spend it. So, the thing is, when you have a warrant article that says, do this, it's more likely to happen. So and I agree with what you're saying. I mean, I'm all for keeping things level, but there's two ways to look at it. And, the question is which
So
select board.
basically, it's either we get a select board who actually spends the money we voted to spend, or everything becomes a warrant article. And we have,
If you've got warrant articles, personally, then we have a choice of whether to.
And if it doesn't get spent on
and,
that,
and,
then we go back
and,
and
and our tax bill becomes very erratic. Okay, so I'll budget for a very high tax bill, and when I don't get a high tax bill, I'll be happy.
One thing, I don't know if you were there at the very beginning of the meeting, but they plan on hiring sometime in the year an administrator. They plan on spending somewhere around $75,000 on that administrator, is the number.
Anybody
I
want
don't know,
to
this is I'm repeating numbers. And they plan on absorbing that into the budget with a level line budget.
Chris stands on that. Nobody else spoke to that.
Well, I know Chris spoke to it, I'm not sure what, but either way,
That was
if
his
that's
goal.
their mentality, so you start adding the striping back into it, you start adding all this stuff in, where are you gonna, I can't see where you can make that kind of a cut in the budget. And especially on, on maintenance type stuff.
Are they hiring an administrator because they're not running the town correctly?
Well, I don't wanna get into that part of it, but I'm just
Uh-huh.
telling you what they told me at that meeting.
I know,
That was-
and I don't
Let's get it back on
remember an exception when
Let's
we
get it
take
back on
the
track.
administrator out of the budget?
There is, from what I understand about the administrator, and I'm going to make one statement and we're going to move on, is that, it has been discussed for a number of reasons, but the feeling was, they talked to the person over in Lineborough, that if they can get their money's worth out of the person by him saving them their salary, and the administrator over there makes far less than $75,000, then it will be well worth it in terms of having a town administrator. It's getting to the point that the list of things we need to deal with in the town is getting very long, and you've got the potential for a drastic change in the select board next year. You have a lot of change in philosophy. There's already been quite a bit of change in terms of the hours that people are putting in, and so the asking people who are in essence volunteers who get a very small stipend to do some of this stuff when they're not experts in fields of HR and legal stuff is tough, and so there's lots of ways to look at it. Enough said. Do we have a motion on what we want to do about the dollars for the transfer station in terms of numbers and where we want it?
What is the purpose of the money that we're putting into the transfer station? Is it just maintenance of the building and potentially a truck? But maybe not?
Eventually they wanna put on one or possibly two more bays under the building they have up there and to replace the truck, the major.
And the compactor's getting old.
The compactor's getting old too. Actually, it's in pretty good shape, but yeah, it is getting old. So, I mean, it's just a matter of trying to save some money towards that spot to.
Because I was looking at the building carpentry report, and it looked like there was nothing really.
No, that's a
major
new
consequence up there.
project up there. That's not a major thing. There is one part of the building that is starting to sag
Right.
on the backside of it, you stand behind it, you can look down, you can see where it'll.
Yeah, if the report just said they recommend just shipping it, dealing with it, that costs almost nothing, so.
Right.
Sorry, we're being snide over here.
Okay.
Talking about backsides. Anyway, can I ask for a motion? Does anybody want to make a motion, or are we gonna move on?
Ben's the most opinionated.
Sorry.
If I don't
No,
have a motion,
so I mean, it seems to me you.
Well, I make a motion, we recommend to the select board, that's basically what we're doing, is make a recommendation to the select
That's
board.
right.
If they listen to it or not, it's up to them, but I would recommend $2,500 in the capital reserve fund for the transfer station, and that be raised by new taxes.
Any second?
Sure, I'll second.
All those in favor? All those opposed?
I was supposed to vote, sorry.
Abstained?
I'm abstaining, because I don't have the big picture that Glenn has,
All right.
so.
All right, moving on. Fire Department Capital Reserve Fund. Okay, we're ditto here, basically. You've got the potential for buying one new truck, but you've got 3 other vehicles currently. Correct. Well, 2 other vehicles would be replacing 2 if we get the new truck approved. But so the thought is, again, you've got to continue to fund the capital reserve to maintain the status quo and be able to refurbish and replace that other engine when the time comes. That's what we're looking at there for refurbishing and replacing the pumper in this Alstead. So I see the question marks there. But what they're proposing and doing is coming up with an $80,000 deposit to that, 50 from the fund balance again, and 30,000 from taxes. Any comments or thoughts on that in terms of necessity and where the fund should come from and what the fund should be? Those are the 3 things we have to focus on with these articles.
So on Article 6 is whether we put money away, and then Article 12 is how much, and I know Joel had that at 500,000.
That's going to come down.
I would say probably 450.
460.
460.
What we're using for placeholder now.
All right, for a placeholder is 460. And you figure withdrawing about $380,000 out of capital reserve, which means we're going to have to come up with about $70,000, $75,000.
He's got it down on line 12, even we're talking about 60. He's talking about 35,000 from the fund balance and 390 from the capital reserve. The capital reserves are all a little bit down right now because the stock market's down.
Exactly, yeah.
And then another 35,000 from taxes. So
That's why I kind of was going towards the way of recommending around 380, and then come up with the rest from that fund balance.
Yeah,
we're not talking about item line 12. We're talking
12,
about line
right.
6.
Okay, so to go back to that, my recommendation would be to go with $20,000 in the capital reserve fund.
yeah.
Again, that would be raised by new taxes.
I think it's confusing to have money coming from different sources for different reasons, and we need to simplify it, you
That's
know.
why I was having a low figure on that, and the following year we can start socking away money again. But
Exactly.
if we're gonna suck all the money out of the fund balance and everything else to buy that new rig, then we should be a little more conservative on the other end. And that's why I picked 25% of what we need to save,
And
which is
then
$20,000.
what happens if something happens to one of our other vehicles?
You still have the new one, if it passes.
Okay.
Did anybody?
That other truck was taken out of commission for quite a while. We survived, and we still had salt.
Did anybody speak to the selectmen about putting like fire together, 6 and 12 together? So that it doesn't go right on that and then
Oh.
that again?
Yeah. Probably can talk about that in the budget hearing.
At least listing them
Yes,
next week.
so that it makes some sense to
Right.
folks. Otherwise, it's like, didn't we talk about this?
Yeah. So if you want, I'll make a motion that we put $20,000 in the fire capital reserve, and that be raised by new taxes.
Second.
20,000? All those in favor? All those opposed? Abstain? Okay, so we're going to 20,000 for taxes. you've now thrown 22.5 into taxes. I'm not sure what we've dropped off from the taxes. I guess we've lowered what's coming from taxes now, so, that has to be considered in terms of, and I'm not sure how much of this stuff that they have down here for funding it was actually even considered anywhere in the taxes, so I guess what I'm trying to say is that, we looked at the budget, which is from line 2. And I guess this is separate from taxes, so you can't really.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
I'm looking at apples and oranges.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
All right. Did everybody understand what I was attempting to say? Totally say. Okay. All right, so we're through line 6. Line 7, library capital reserve.
15 grand, I'd leave it the way it is, and take that from fund balance.
Okay, so it's okay as is. Any other questions or comments on that?
What is that for? Is that for the roof we were looking at?
That's part of it. Again, anything else that may go on with there? Nothing other than the roof is the plan, according to my notes. All right, the ambulance capital reserve, we're pulling $80,000 from the fund balance for that. And we dropped it down to $25,000, it looks like, from the fund balance? Is that agreed?
I had 15,000 on that, and raised by new taxes.
You want 15 for new taxes?
Yeah.
What are you using the fund balance for? As you're going through here,
What I've tried to do is to go back to where I said is I believe we're gonna have around $90,000. Because I think I sent out a list of all the stuff that was underspent, that goes into fund balance. The equipment that was sold, that goes into fund balance. And anything that's left over at the end of the year goes into fund balance, plus what we have, about $700,000 in there. So I was thinking somewhere around $900,000, take half of that, $450,000 out and put it in on warrant articles.
but you're taking everything out of fund balance and putting it into taxation.
No, you'll see once I get the rest of my numbers down here, where everything's coming from.
Why don't we get to the big picture, because you must have a bigger
Yes,
agenda.
and and basically paying for most of the warrant articles out of fund balance, up to $450,000, raising only at $80,000 in new taxes, and then cutting and playing with all the other numbers to come down, and this is what you can afford.
Oh, I know.
That's what my philosophy is on it.
All right, Les, you had your hand up.
I was gonna say, because we were discussing what the other plans that Glenn had, I would like to make a motion to suspend the meeting and have Glenn go over the whole entire picture at one time. And then once he is done doing his presentation, we go back into open session.
Well, I think it's good to go through all these numbers like
Well, I
this.
agree.
And once you get out of the end, you'll decide.
So it's,
Let's vote at the end after we've
Yeah.
heard the discussion.
it's 8:20,
Sorry.
and we have the select board hearing on Tuesday night, but we don't meet again.
Yeah.
So we've got a lot to get through.
Yeah.
Does anybody want to second Les's motion, which is on the floor?
Declined.
Okay, we'll draw it. All right, so back to the ambulance, line 8. Okay, what do you want to do, what are you recommending?
I'm recommending $15,000 on that to go into capital reserve, and that would be raised by new taxes.
Actually, can I make a suggestion? Instead of, as long as there's nobody vehemently opposed to any of these, or we'll discuss them all, and then perhaps at the end, we should vote on the total package.
Yes,
See the
I
final
like
number?
that.
Okay.
Okay. We'll go
All right, I
fast
think that's
again.
where we were kind of going. All right, any other discussions on the ambulance?
What is where are we at with the ambulance? Looking at
Right now,
your plan, it looks like it's a where'd it go? 2000 and
2008
life cycle.
2018
plan, we have $100,000 now. If we need to buy it in that time, we can always take the money that we have out of capital reserve and then lease the vehicle for the rest of the year.
I think I had asked about that last time, and leasing is an option.
Right, absolutely, yes. And that was my thought, is if we don't quite have enough, the money, that is one important piece of equipment that we need.
Yeah.
It's also a piece of equipment that generates income for the town.
Right.
So
Right,
it's not something we want to lose, because it's going to cost us a lot of money if it's down.
exactly,
And
absolutely.
we need not to look at it as a money situation, how much is a human life worth?
It's a good call. Okay, go ahead.
Does the money generated by the ambulance pay for itself? Does it pay for,
Not totally, but just as helping
It-
too, that we're looking, people are looking at it much more closely than they have in the past.
so
They've raised the fees too.
by how much?
Well over 100%, because they were
Okay,
roughly more in line with what,
100% sounds,
Yeah.
okay.
and that's really only a couple $100.
I know.
It's much more in line with what the standard was, in terms of Medicare billing, I believe, so.
So what is the current condition of the ambulance? Should we be more concerned about replacing it sooner, or like?
Well, we've kind of left it as it's year by year, and this is what I had discussion I had with Anton and also with Jesse, is it's year by year to see what it looks like, and then we say, okay, fine, can we make it last another couple of years? The answer is yes, okay, fine. So it has been pushed off, because really it's supposed to be replaced in 15
Right.
years. And the biggest thing I've heard and talked to people about is that it's mostly the electrical stuff that's inside there that starts messing up on you. The rest of it's just, I mean, you could throw a transmission engine, all that stuff, and that's not, you know where that stuff's going. It's the electrical stuff, you drive down the road and all of a sudden it just kaputs on you. But
Yeah.
we've had no problem with electricals in it so far, so that's what we've said, okay, fine, we can make it last another couple of years, and that's how it's been pushed off.
Well, Les makes a good point in terms of the value of life. Suppose that thing decides to crap out when they're transporting.
Well, and that's why, we assess it every year and say, fine, if it's starting to give us a lot of problems, then we would push it up closer.
And then what's the timeline to get a new one, assuming it does, next month it cracks out, we've got the money to do a lease thing.
If it cracked out next month, it wouldn't matter, because we wouldn't be able to take that money out of capital reserve until there's a vote. And we can't lease it without a vote. So no matter what, we would be paying for something on that anyways.
All right.
But I don't think it's gonna crap out.
There's $100,000 in there, and you're talking somewhere between about 160 to 200 to replace it.
Right.
And so is the general consensus, aside from what Glenn's saying from people, is $15,000, no matter where it's coming from, enough, or do we think we should be higher on that? Any other thoughts? Again, this is something that generates income for the town.
I'm pretty
This
sure.
value of life. Go ahead.
I'm pretty sure that the committee, EMT committee,
MSG. We haven't gotten to the
investigated what it would cost to
Oh, yeah, we did, back in the day.
farm it out,
Oh,
to
yeah.
say
We
clean or
ran-
something.
We actually ran those numbers, it was like 3 or 4 years ago.
Not recently? I thought they did it recently.
Well, we did, well, we did go over, the idea of, we looked at the old numbers.
The old numbers.
Louisiana charges over twice what we charge, almost 3 times, actually maybe more than 3 times what we charge when they come up for an ambulance call.
Yeah, it was quite a bit, and I ran all the numbers at that
Okay,
time.
wait a second, but they charge the person they're picking
Right.
up.
If the insurance company doesn't pay it, the town picks up the
The
bill.
town pays it?
Yeah.
Right.
If they hand $1,000 bill to them, they don't pay it, they said, Alstead, you pay it, and that's part of the contract.
Right. And what does it cost to hold them accountable for responding?
None.
No, you don't.
Nothing at all?
We live in the country.
We have
So-
a contract with them, I'm not sure what the contract states. There is a
Okay,
contract.
so in other words, if we could have a contract where they're responsible for responding and it wouldn't cost us anything unless the person they came to help did not pay them.
You'll never get them here for that. They're gonna look at the contract, I mean, that should be a discussion at another meeting. 'Cause
Yeah.
it's gonna be really long, but,
That seems like it can get rid of a lot of expense. Just let King do it and,
well, yeah, you don't have to supply an ambulance service. Alstead doesn't have to pay for it at all.
I think we're getting off track here.
But-
Yeah, so the EMSG has not gotten to ambulance yet, and that's something that they certainly should be looking at. But all right, so we'll leave it at 15,000 for taxes at this point right now. Okay, the next line item, Article 9, I believe, is for the police department,
Yep.
for equipment, and eventually apparently what they've done is they tend to alternate from what Joel has told me, they lease one car, then they buy one cruiser. And that's how they've worked it out for cash flow versus debt over the past. So this is, they're looking at putting $10,000 into that fund, which would bring it up to $20,000. It looks like we've zeroed it out.
I went to 5,000 new taxes.
All right, what's the butt? You go from that.
A little bit away for it, and then once you get to the time, we buy and then lease the rest of it.
Again, I'm one, because I can't see anything tonight. So I can't read anything. But two, until I hear the picture, I'm not liking all this stuff from new taxes. So this is my problem with voting on each of these things.
We're not.
No,
Now we're just hearing his number.
Okay.
So that we can tally it, no, that we, then what I said, was let's stop voting on it and we'll vote
I
it
know,
again.
but then I thought you just put out the,
Maybe I said vote and I didn't mean to. I wanted to make sure I had any thoughts. What are we looking at? All right,
So basically putting $5,000 in the capital reserve fund, and that would be from new taxes.
all right, you guys zeroed it out the last time though. What do you want to do? I wasn't here. 0 or 5,000?
So let's not vote on
Let's
it.
not
We're
vote.
not voting.
I'm asking you what you want to do so I can.
until I hear the whole thing, I
Hold on,
can't give you
hold
an
on.
answer.
I'm asking for an opinion, that's it, all right? So I can write something down and we can tally it at the end and have a tally for a
Right.
vote.
Right, but until I,
Well, you could say, let's see what it looks
Let's put
like at
his
the
number
end,
down.
say, okay, fine,
Let's
and
put
then
his
see what it
number
looks like at the
All
end.
right.
Put his numbers down.
You gotta have something that you're shooting at, otherwise you might as well
well,
say
we're
screw
shooting
it on
at
all of
zero,
them.
because that's what we put in last time, is what I'm saying. So that's why, until I see the whole thing, I can't give you an answer, because I gave an answer of zero last week.
All right, I've got
2
one
weeks ago.
person who's advocating 0 and one person who's advocating 5,000. Do I hear anything else in terms of what I should put in as a placeholder until we can take a vote when we see the whole picture?
Me too.
All right, we're gonna leave it at 5,000 for now then, okay. All right, paving, we're looking at $160,000, $100,000 from the fund balance and $60,000 from the capital reserve. And the culverts have all been replaced on that area of road as far as I know. Okay, that's the March Hill Road, and Walpole Valley Road, up to where Walpole paved it.
Well, the whole project is gonna be around $250,000, and I felt that that should all come out of fund balance. That's infrastructure, that should definitely be taken care of.
Where's the other 90,000 coming from?
Well, I got $250,000 of the project, take to complete $250,000 from fund balance.
So do you know, Glenn, why they dropped the number down to 160?
I don't know who dropped it,
They've
we got
never
160, but that's,
Yeah.
it's $250,000.
How do you know that?
Because that's, I saw the bid from Joel, from David.
Oh.
They've never traditionally spent anything more than 100.
Well, see, the problem,
Something that-
yeah, $130,000, and that was Matt's idea. But the problem is that we're falling behind. We should be spending about $170,000 to $180,000 just to keep our roads in good shape. And that's a 10-year plan. So $130,000, so every year for the past 5 years, we've fallen behind that amount of money. So now we're behind even more. And then you add more onto that, because every time you let a road sit there, it deteriorates even more, and it costs you more even next year. Without the product even going up in price, it costs you more money to do it, because the road deteriorates more.
So one of the things you're trying to do is shift money around so that infrastructure is out of the unified fund balance more so, and then,
The most important thing, I think, in a town is infrastructure. Keeping your roads, keeping your bridges, and stuff like that. And this is my philosophy, is that if one of the highway trucks died, so what? If the ambulance died, I would be upset. If, stuff like that. That's my thought process of this whole thing. That's why I put some of the other things that aren't quite as important. They are important, but not as quite.
look from a different perspective, and they're less long-term. John, you got a comment? No. Joel,
Les?
sorry, Les.
I just want to make a ruling on point of order of our rules of following. The visitors here do have a right to talk at the end of the meeting, not during. Am I correct on that? There's
I don't know if those are in the rules of order or not, but if somebody has a question and it's brief, I don't have a problem with answering it right away, so.
Okay.
Just to reiterate Glenn's point about the paving schedule, looking at the schedule that he sent out, if we delayed the Marsh Hill and Walpole Valley schedule, then we're delaying
lot of
it
other
needs
stuff.
to be done in the village, which is another $218,000+ project. And then the year after that is Drewsville Road for $127,000. So I personally feel that the paving in March Hill needs to be done, March Hill and Walpole Valley
Okay.
Road. And
So is the current proposal that we're going to put as a placeholder, 250,000 from the fund balance?
Balance, yeah.
Sure. All right. And we'll come back to all of this as a summary at the end. Okay. All right, moving along, striping. The reason the striping was, as a warrant article, is that I was told it was more likely to get done than when it is in the budget as a separate line item.
That sounds like horse food to me.
Oh, no.
No, it's
I'll show you the years. It was in there and it just become part of the slush fund and spent someplace else.
Just tell David to do it.
Yeah.
Get her done, how about that?
All right.
It doesn't have to be, if it's a warrant article, it has to be used for that. Otherwise, it can go anywhere.
Or anything can, I don't care. How about that? I think it should be under his budget, otherwise it.
$10,000 is going to stay right there at this point from the fund balance. I think we should, again, look at the total picture again. Good old fire truck.
Actually, I didn't budget, but yeah.
Glenn, what was your feeling in terms of numbers for the
I
fire
was
truck?
thinking 450, but go with the 460.
That may come down.
$380,000 coming out of fund balance. I mean, excuse me, out of capital reserve, sorry, out of capital reserve.
Yeah.
$70,000 coming out, well, actually, it's gonna be $80,000 coming out of fund balance, and nothing new raised for taxes on that. So we pay it all out of capital reserve and fund balance.
Okay. Any other comments or thoughts on that one?
I like that.
Okay. Again, that number may come down.
Right, that may change a little bit.
All right, the trailer. We have $15,000 coming out of fund balance for a trailer.
And actually, I had that out of David's capital reserve.
Yeah, we did too.
15,000 out of capital reserve.
Okay. All right, cemeteries.
Stone walls, 5,000 and 5,000 out of fund balance.
Okay, that was okay as is.
Mill Green, the same thing, out of fund balance, 5,000.
Okay.
Bridge design, I think, I had down 60, but I think Joel was talking 50 on that. For
Yes.
the bridge design, and that would also come out of fund balance.
Yep.
And it depends on whether that dump truck makes it on the warrant article or not. My thought was,
Somebody got zeroed, okay.
it would be Article 18, I don't know what it could be anyways, $200,000 for the truck, $140,000 out of capital reserve.
You are putting the truck in, you're suggesting we put
I
the truck
am.
in there.
If they so choose, yes. But that's gonna be, but like, we just made a motion to table it for another year, so I guess we can leave it. Let's just for conversation, if they do decide to put it in, this is what I would recommend, it's $140,000 come out of David's capital reserve, $40,000 come out of fund balance, and $20,000 in new taxes.
140, 20, and 20?
140, 40, and 20. And so that would only raise taxes by $80,000, which would be $100 on a normal tax rate, on a normal $200,000 house.
So the items that would have elements raised from new taxes are the,
Hold on, we're not done yet. With that, let's get back to that, okay?
The truck or the,
We need to summarize that in a minute, but if you don't mind waiting. The other thing was Sam was talking about having an article in there for removing trees from Alstead Center Green.
that should be part of the budget, that should be part of
Those
it.
trees do not need to come down.
Have you looked at them? There are a bunch of trees there that are quite on their way out, okay, and they're close to the wires.
Well, if they're close to the wires, then the power
The
company.
power company will take care of them.
Yeah, if they fall on the wires, that's the power company will be more than happy. to
There
install.
are some trees up there that are in really lousy shape. There are some really lousy shaped trees on 12A that I have not seen the power company come out and deal with. And when you walk from our road up our house up to the Hill Road, there's a lot of trees that are in tough shape.
Just call the power company and they'll send someone out.
You could
You
spend
know,
$100,000.
it's really easy. Whether or not they're gonna come down on the power lines is one thing, whether or not they're gonna come down on the road on some of it's something else too, so.
Well,
these days to keep it after David to get these, to use his budget.
State road.
No, I mean on our old town roads, to keep after him to do this stuff, to spend that money. We allot $5,000 or $4,000 to spend that money on removing those trees. Because that's another, it's just not getting done.
All right, so we don't want to include a warrant article for this.
Telling him to do that?
Exactly, but.
All right, Priscilla, you want to summarize what you got there?
I don't suppose we just put it on the right board, because it doesn't gonna seem like help. It'll help everybody to be on us, so.
Well, I might be able to see the whiteboard.
You're not going to be able to see anything.
So, what is this Article 17, this TH?
That got zeroed out. That was the,
Was that the Bell Hill one?
Town Hill Capital Reserve for,
Yeah.
to the,
Yeah, Bell Hill. I think so.
Bell Hill, yeah.
Town Hall Capital Reserve.
Oh, Town Hall,
Town
that's
Hall.
gone, yeah.
all right, so
That's true. Yeah,
how do we want to do this for columns? Should I do two columns?
What they're proposing, what we're suggesting.
No, we want to summarize the changes. We want to look at fund balance, capital reserves, and taxes. All right, I'm going to start with Article 3, and that shows 25,000 coming from the fund balance. Article 4, we changed that to 40,000 from the fund balance. If I'm making mistakes along the way, somebody please correct me. Article 5, we have 2,500 for new taxes. So this is 3, 4, 5.
The high,
Go ahead.
Article 4, which is the highway, was 10,000.
I've got 40,000 from the
It was 40.
fund balance on that.
Okay, yes, that was, okay, yes.
All right, that was Les's motion.
Yeah.
5 was 2,500 new taxes. 6, I've got 20,000 new taxes.
Yeah.
7 is okay as is, so that was 15,000 from the fund balance. 8, we've got 15,000 for new taxes. 9 went to 500 from new taxes.
5,000.
5,000, okay. Thank you. 10, 250,000 from the fund balance. 11 was 10,000 from the fund balance. 12 was, let's see, you got 380 from the capital reserve and 80 from taxes?
From fund balance.
Fund balance.
I'm sorry, this number 10 is straight,
250.
no, 11 is 10.
13 is 15,000 from the capital reserve. 14, 5,000 from the fund balance. 15 was 5,000 from the fund balance. 16 was 50,000 from the fund balance. And that was the end of it. I didn't my calculator. So this came out to be, let's do the
What
easy
about
ones.
6?
2, you just said no.
Oh.
20, 40, 4250 in new taxes, 42,500. And that's 380 and 85, 395 from the capital reserve funds. Which shouldn't really matter because they're already there. All right, 25 and 15 is 40, 40 is 80. And then 250 would be 330, 340, 420, 425, 430, and 50 would be 480,000.
That's about half of what we're going to project.
So ignore these numbers, that's my position. All right.
So you can see it later.
All right, so they were proposing 510 from the unified fund balance. We dropped that down to 480. Capital reserves was a little bit higher, and the 2016 taxes. Anybody got a calculator?
For Joel's,
Well, yeah, he's going to pop off from his number on the bottom there, that he subtract off the 1539890 for the operating budget. So 1,709,890 minus the 1,539,890. So what's 1,709 minus 1,539? Zeros out. 170,000 difference in terms of taxes, so we're less actually. That sounds right. We dropped it that much.
Well,
Okay.
I don't know on that amount, but
Well. Yeah, right here. 1,538,9. 1,539. Yeah, which is what I came up with, wasn't it? Yeah. Okay. All
So
right.
now leave some money into the fund balance for the next year. So we keep taxes even. So we should be able to use some of that next year to fund the stuff we have, raise a little bit of new money, and keep the taxes more even.
Yeah, I like the idea of leaving more in the unassigned fund balance as opposed to putting it into CRFs, although we talked about that.
Right. Because we could use that, say, for instance, the ambulance crapped out, and we had that money next year, we could withdraw that money, like we're doing with the fire truck, to buy that ambulance.
Right. And Juliana made a point in the December 16th meeting that if we do that, we leave ourselves open to allowing the select
Yeah, I
board
know.
to apply that to reducing the tax rate at the end of, in December 2016.
That's the biggest
And
thing.
the only reason that did not happen this year is that one of the selectmen wasn't there.
Right.
Had all three of them been there, that would have happened this
You
year.
know, part of the problem is that they can vote to do that, but we really don't know what the constitution of the select board is going to be next year.
Exactly.
We've got 2/3 of it up for re-election. And you know, lots could change.
Well, I still think this is a solid approach because leaving that much in the unassigned fund balance because we don't have a good plan, as far as I can see, a really solid plan that is the most economic way to support our highways in terms of equipment. You know, just trying to get, you know, a new truck or whatever for $180,000 to $200,000 every year. I just don't think the town is going to go for that.
Right, exactly.
So I think we have to have a better plan. Like the fire, we came up for the fire department, you know, combining two trucks. We have to have something smart like that.
Right.
All right.
And
Any
until
other?
we do, I think it's better to leave it unassigned.
Bob?
Just a quick question. If you spend the 480 in the fund balance, that's going to leave you a balance of 270,000 in the fund balance.
No.
No, certainly.
What Glenn is saying, it will actually be higher because of the fact that we have the surplus from this year of potentially around 200,000, give or take.
That won't go in until the
No,
next
it's there.
year.
It's there, you just can't spend it.
So you're talking, and let's say that's, argument say $200,000, so that's going to bring you to 470, roughly 70,000, which is about 40% less than what you have now.
Right. And the general feeling is, and if I misstate this, somebody please correct me, that the proposal from the select board is to spend down that balance more so than what we're proposing. Okay, what Glenn's saying basically is to try to keep it even so that we're spending it down in uniform amounts over time, that one, if we have a major problem, that you've got some cushion, and two, it's going to keep the tax rate more even that way. And there's some concern that on the select board that they're trying to drop it too low and the tax rate's going to go all over the place over time in doing so.
One was estimating about $80,000 in taxes, and you've come up with 42.5, and I don't know what the right number should be.
Okay.
Well, that's different because we've changed stuff around a little bit going out through, because mine also included the truck.
I mean, that doesn't sound like a significant increase used to be.
Okay, that's,
And you know what, we didn't put the truck in there, so we need to put the truck in there.
if we ended up buying the truck, and that would be,
All right. Well, hold on, let me show you where I'm going with that. So that's 140 going across, if this was in the same column, 40,000 from the fund balance, and then another 20,000 from taxes. Okay, which would bring you up now to 620, 435, and about 62.5. Okay, and so I guess the question is, do we want to recommend the truck, or do we want to look at that? Because that 140 coming out of the fund balance on top of the 480,
That's scary.
it does skew things a little
Yeah,
bit.
no, we can't do that. We can't do that,
All right.
right? Because we have to keep 250, and they're proposing, 500,000 to be withdrawn.
Oh, no, we don't want that, whatever.
All right. Is everybody in agreement with the way we've laid this out? Makes sense in terms of, not so much in terms of what we want to do, but these are the numbers we've discussed. They add up in a proper manner, and we can now see a big picture of something.
Yeah, but we're getting the truck?
Not any of it, just in general.
Yes.
What we laid out is what we've discussed. Okay. All right. Next thing. Does somebody want to make a motion to recommend? Hold on. Right? To propose something that we want to update and send forth to the select board as our recommendation at this point, in terms of a big package. Okay. All right. So put it in words. Don't you?
I'll make a motion that we put together a package to send to the selectmen.
Specifically, okay, we're going to make all of this a part of it.
Everything except for the truck.
Okay. Does anybody second that?
I'll second that.
Okay. All those in favor of that motion? All those opposed? Abstained? Okay. All right. I will update this. I will send it to probably Glenn and Priscilla tomorrow or Friday for a quick review, and then I will send it off to Glenn to make sure I have the numbers right. Okay.
You're talking 620,000 out of fund balance.
No, this did not get included, Bob.
Oh,
That did not get included with the vote.
Excuse me.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Should we talk about who wants to be the spokesperson next Tuesday? I mean, I won't be here, so it doesn't matter to me, but,
It's kind of a free-for-all.
Church, you're gonna go.
I know, but we sort of had people that were good. I mean, are you comfortable standing up?
I'll voice my opinion.
Oh, no, our opinion, not your opinion, our opinion. Who can explain it well?
I don't know, I have to explain something overall well. It's a hearing, and people
Yeah.
basically throw out questions.
Basically,
But if somebody said, let's say ABC thing, who's standing up?
so you all look at each other and point to someone. But,
I'll be in May, so.
it's basically a budget hearing is.
I know, I've been.
Okay.
I got it.
But some people may not have.
Oh, I'm
It's a
sorry.
time that the selectmen get to hear what the thoughts are of the town. And also, any warrant article that's gonna be put on has to be discussed at that time. So even if you want to bring up something else that you're thinking of, as long as it's discussed at that meeting, then the selectmen can put it on as a warrant article.
I'm just saying, I think last year he said, what do you guys think?
I come down through and I make a list, and actually as we talk about each thing, I check it off, and then make sure that we talk about everything.
Will you do that this year?
I'll do that this year.
All right. I guess it's a question of the proverbial flows downhill, and by default, yeah, I got the basket this year since Chris is not available, and Sam will probably still be in the hospital at that point. So although by law, right? Okay. Yeah, this bad things happen in threes, and you said, Les, you already took a fall, so I'm, knocking on wood that I'm not the third, that Sam was the third, no more for any of us, me or anybody else, but, so I will by default speak up, but, anything that pertains, especially to DPW, you're gonna be there, and somebody else should, hopefully, all of you will be there next week, so,
Yeah,
it's
I think
important that we make a presence, so.
we need to articulate some of the principles behind our proposal, not just the numbers
I
themselves.
have a class that I have to be at next Tuesday.
I think you got those dark glasses on. All right, any other old business?
He said one sentence, it goes
Any new business? Any comments from our visitors?
I commend you for sticking with us.
All right, action items for the next meeting, which will be next Wednesday, the 13th. At this point, and that's at 6:30. At this point, Nick, you still need to follow up, please, about the cost of paving on Marshall Road only, I guess? Well, do we need to do that or not?
Not really.
All right.
I mean, I can come up with the numbers pretty, you'll never get David House, I'd have to get that
I
goal.
understand that. Okay, and then I've got three things to submit to the select board. Like get the numbers for the stone wall in the cemetery coming from the Trust for Professional Care. The cemetery warrant article will be more specific as to which stone walls, and will they please move Articles 6 and 12 close together for discussion purposes. And then I believe I have an action item, I'm not sure if there's any other ones, to update the numbers on the warrant articles, and I'll get them reviewed and then out to everybody.
And actually light kind of articles, like the bridge, the capital reserve for the bridge, they should be, I'm sure they're gonna do that, but it might be just a suggestion that when they send it out. Right, just to kind of organize it better. And I think these are just thoughts as Joel put
It
it.
is strictly Joel's, it is not the
Yeah,
select board's.
Absolutely, absolutely, and those.
So we don't know what those guys are?
You don't know what they're thinking.
Oh.
Yes, that is a concern, that this has not been discussed by the select board in any kind of open session yet, and the hearing is on 6 nights away.
Well,
So
I think-
they might disagree?
I think once we drill down to the budget again on Friday, and then Wednesday, I have a feeling we're probably gonna hash out more stuff on the warrant articles. That's just a feeling, but, because they're gonna get a better idea of what.
And Tuesday.
No,
Tuesday is the budget, and we're gonna meet Wednesday.
Oh, what do we need?
No, there's another selectmen's meeting Wednesday
In the
morning.
workshop.
But part of the concern is, and again, I'm newbie to how the whole process in New Hampshire works, but I have a hard time with the select board, and on a personal level, I'm not speaking as the chair of this committee, that the select board has not discussed these things before the hearing.
Well, they don't normally anyways. They normally just compile all the things, and then they kind of get an idea. Each one of these will come up for discussion, they'll talk about them, they'll get an idea of what the people that show up feel about the stuff. And then,
The problem is that
actually,
one person has compiled them.
Maybe this is why we need an administrator.
Les?
First off, I'd like to say congratulations, good job, everyone give yourself a round of applause, please, for it. Secondly, Madam Chairman, I make the motion that the meeting be adjourned at this time.
I'll second that.
Committee.
I have an extra guest.
I just don't know